All right, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and he's off the crutches. Put your hands together. Big, big moth welcome for Eddie Hejka. You look good. Oh, I'm so glad you're off the crutches.
Okay, so I was born in 1958. So I was a kid in the 60s, teenager in the 70s. It was a much simpler time, and it was, the tail end of the baby boom. And so there was always, a million kids to play with. In our block alone, on the west side of Detroit, there was 85 kids. The parents would tell you, go outside and play. So you'd be running through the alleys playing and you're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But when I look back, I mean, it's a wonder to me that, with my generation, with all the stupid things me and my buddies used to do, that, by the time we reach adulthood, that the girls didn't outnumber the boys by like 2 to 1. Because, the thing, we used to love to climb buildings, a few times, hanging by my fingertips, way above the ground, the crazy stuff we used to do on our bikes, way before helmets, riding through traffic, and, doing this thing called bumper hitching. When the roads were really icy in the winters, you'd hide behind a parked car, and as a moving car would come by, you'd scoot out real low and grab the bumper and see how fast and far you could go, being dragged along, surfing on that ice, or, playing on the railroad cars, or any number of other stupid things, and then we got our driver's license. And if even if you didn't have a car or a license, we used to do this thing. It was like a 70s version of a ride share. You'd stand on the side of the road and stick your thumb out, and hitch a ride. You'd go 5 miles, 500 miles. You met all kinds of people. And with the hundreds and hundreds of rides I ever got, there was only twice where I was scared for my life. But, by the, 76, 77, I was 17, 18 years old. I was going to college up in the Upper Peninsula at Michigan Tech. And, that's how I used to get around. I'd hitch a ride, come back to Detroit, head back up to school. And this one winter break, I'm back home. I'd hitch a ride back home, met a bunch of interesting people. But my buddy Fred calls me, and he says, look, Eddie, I got us a ride back to school. His buddy of his, Steve, had a car. And, we could jump in with him and we could ride back and just pitch in for gas. So we made great time. We're all the way up in Marquette, just 100 miles to go to get to Houghton. So we stopped, for that traditional college dinner, pizza and beer. And the beer turned out to be not to be a good idea. So we're heading back, by now it's already dark. Of course, it's winter in the Upper Peninsula. That meant it was past 5 o'clock. And we're heading on Highway 41, this curvy road. We're outside this little town called Lance. And we come around this curve. Fred's driving. I'm in the passenger seat. Steve's in the back. There was no back seat. They just packed all their stuff and left a little room for one person to lay back there and try and get some sleep. Of course, this was the 70s. The car was at least 10, 12 years old. So there's no seat belts, shoulder harnesses, airbags. The big, back then, when that car was built, the airbags were, a communist conspiracy. So we're driving around this curve, and Fred's driving. And there's this semi, like halfway off the road with some emergency flashers. And we go around and we wonder why he stopped. And we go around the next curve and we start to spin out. And we're spinning and spinning. You've been in an accident and your brain is racing. So time seems to slow down. And I'm like, Fred. And we're waiting for it to stop to see what happens. And we finally, the back end of our car spins off the road onto the shoulder. And we stop spinning because now we're tumbling. Bam, bam, and finally fall back onto the side of the car. And I'm sitting on the driver's side door next to Fred. And we look up and we're making sure our fingers are still there and our arms and the legs, and we're both okay. And he says, I got this. And he climbs up on the driver's side seat and the passenger seat, and he throws open the door and he sticks his head out. And the door comes swinging back down, gravity. Hits him on the head, and he collapses back down next to me. He's got a big bump and a cut on his head. That's his only injury. I said, Fred, there's no windshield. Because as the car was tumbling, everything's going in slow motion. And I see the ashtray go flying by, and I see some clothes go flying by, some of our food, cookies go flying by, and I see the windshield go popping out, and finally I curl up in a ball and I land down next to Fred. So I said, there's no windshield. So we stand up and we walk out onto Highway 41, and we're standing out there. That's crazy. I can't believe we made it through there. We're okay. And then we hear, who? We forgot about Steve. He had been asleep in the back. Now he's standing on his head with all our junk on top of him. And so we pull the seat up as hard as we can, and we grab him by the arms. Probably not a good safety technique. And we're yanking him out, and we pull him out, and he's perfectly fine. We're standing out there in the middle of Highway 41. We're fine. And that semi comes pulling up. Gives nice and slow, picks up Steve, gives him a ride into Lance to get a wrecker, and gets the car all towed into town, and then we stick out our thumbs. And amazingly, we got a ride all the way to Houghton. And the next morning, I'm in class, pulling the little shards of glass that are still in my long 70s hair, right? And thinking, maybe I've reached that age that before I make a decision, I should, do a danger assessment.